Our meeting here from our wonderful ceremony outside with the AmeriCorps to now the Commissioners' Chamber. And Mark, I do believe that we have our action. I mean, do we want to start with that?
Items.
We'll be here to our action items. So.
Mm-hmm. I'll move that we approve items 1 through 7.
Yeah, I second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
So that is done, and I guess we can move to other business if we have some, which I believe we do.
We can. Do you want to talk about the engineer stipends? That's the next item of business that I have on my list.
I would like to talk about the engineer stipends. Maybe we should talk about the fact that we have scheduled the executive director of the Cape Cod Commission. He has notified us that he is going to be late.
I'm going to suggest that we
either.
call him and reschedule, because you can't really dictate what happens with a medical procedure for
Exactly.
somebody.
Well, I think there's two.
It gets them off the hook.
There's like kind of two things. There's Paul's goals and objectives, which are not as time sensitive,
Right,
I think,
right.
as the engineer
As
As
stipend.
the engineer thing, and I do think that he would like to discuss the his take on that after we'll be talking to Mark about that first portion. So will we say that we will after this we will reconvene upon his return, either 11:30 or 12 o'clock? Why don't
That's
we
up
say
to you
noon
guys.
time? Can you
That's
make
kinda
it
up
at
to you
noon?
guys.
It'll be about a 20.
I kind of agree with Bill. If you're involved in anything medically related, you never get taken at the time, always you expect. And it would seem to me it would give him some level of comfort if he knew that we were going to postpone the discussion on the goals. I think that after, and then that lets him off the hook with that. But then when we discuss the stipend, we ought to see what conclusions we come to. And if we come to a conclusion that that is satisfactory, perhaps, to Paul, then there wouldn't be a big need for him to rush back. But if we have questions and issues about it that Paul will definitely want to be involved in, then we can let him know that we'll have to take it up with him, and then we can decide then we can decide whether or not we have to wait for him to come
That's
back.
kind of where I am.
Okay.
I think we should go through
Let's
Go
it
through
and see where we are.
And,
And if there's an issue, I agree with you then, because I believe it's not a surprise. I think Paul's in favor of awarding them
Right.
because I believe that the staff has earned them, and I think he believes that since they're paid for under the Mass Highway grant, that it's not an impact on the county's overall budget. So I think that's his
Right.
reason.
And the other point that I will say that he has said several times, and I believe that Pat heard it one time, was that in taking these stipends away, those 3 employees will be the only employees that get a salary decrease, as opposed to no COLA at all, because it's really looked at as part of it was a deferred payment to their salary. So.
Okay, well, I think the point has to be made, and I want to be on record for this, that when we made the policy decision at the beginning of the year to eliminate all, additional payments, that this opens up, if we decide to do this, that we should also make the other employees who had made the point at that time that they had access to external funds, and that perhaps we should, because that also represents an impact on their income, that we should tell them that they should be able to come in and make their own pitch through their department heads for the for their own
I don't
circumstances.
think. Okay, let's discuss this.
Well,
I think this is a
Right.
policy thing, and I think that this is all part of what we should be looking at a policy, because I sincerely believe that when we signed the budget, that we made a policy statement as commissioners, all 3 of our commissions, because we all signed the budget and we all approved it, that we took the position that we would not support anything that was outside of the normal salaries, that people gave up steps, that they gave up.
Can I suggest
Can we
something
just-
just a
can we
minute?
just
though?
discuss-
You're, in my sense, we have one issue, a single issue, the engineering stipend
That's
on
right.
the table. You're perhaps unnecessarily broadening
Exactly.
the discussion. You have a point, and I would tend to agree with your point, but I think the issue in front of us right now is a singular issue. It may
is a singular
impact
issue.
what we
However,
feel about other
Before I
issues.
could move on it, I would have to have the sense that we were being fair and equitable with regard to all of our employees. And if we're not, I don't think, I think that that sets us out of the responsibility that we have that when we make a judgment and that we agree on a policy, that if we're going to change the policy exceptions should be allowed for all employees and not just ones. The need of all of our employees is equal. We have a responsibility to support the legitimate salary needs of all of our employees, and I want to make sure that we do that.
Thank you, Bill.
I think we need to define the issue, and I'm not clear what the issue really is.
Exactly.
I
Thank you.
know it has to do with the stipend, but in order for me to even begin to understand it, I need to understand how it happened, how it came about, what part of the compensation is it, and how is it presented to employees, and what did they understand when they accepted it. Okay, so
Yeah,
if you can
so let me give
maybe
you some
explain
background
it
on
from
that. Last time we did the salary study, which was a number of years ago, the big dig was in full swing. And when we had MMA Consulting Group, Mark Morse, do our salary evaluation, he looked at all of the positions. We did all new job descriptions. We reviewed all of the positions. And when we came to the transportation engineers over at the commission, I believe there's 3 positions. There's transportation engineer, PE, senior transportation engineer, and transportation engineer are the 3 positions in question. One of the issues that arrived as we did the salary comparisons to other entities, regional entities, other towns and things, was the competitive nature of that business, so to speak. So at that point in time, MMA Consulting recommended then, because it was a temporary market issue because of the big dig, that we put in place a stipend rather than adjust the salary range for that position. And originally that stipend was intended to be a temporary measure to correct this market imbalance, for lack of a better word, for transportation engineers that was occurring in eastern Massachusetts. And we put in an $1,800 a year stipend, and it's paid monthly to those 3 individuals. And that has been going on for the past several years.
Since what year?
2002 is what I want to say.
So it's been
Past 7,
almost 10 years. So
yeah.
it's an 8 year, 8
7.
years. It's
Yeah.
been.
I have a question on that, and the question is, why wasn't this included in the budget as normal salary items, and not a raise?
Because we froze all of the pieces that were external in the budget.
Exactly.
But there is the ability to charge, transportation grants that we get from the state for this particular piece.
Has this not always come out of the
I
transportation?
believe that always.
It has always been charged as a fee to the state.
I believe that. So.
All right.
So it is not has anything to do with the county budget.
Well, it has something to do with compensation, and that's what I'm interested. How many individuals do we have employed in these positions?
I
Three.
believe there's 3.
3, okay.
Can I
bet-
just go back to Sheila's point?
Yeah.
It does, because when we set the budget, we take into account those transportation grants. We factor in any grants we're going to get from the state.
So, but that is looked at as they have now come to look at that as part of their salary. That is their income that they count on. That is something that they look at as part of their. It was a deferred payment as opposed to increasing the salary to meet that amount.
Right, although
It has been given to them through a state grant, and they have come for 8 years
For 8
to
years.
rely on that as part of their package.
although
of their
it's clear that it
compensation.
was a temporary measure.
Okay.
But how was it temporary? Was it temporary in that there would be a time that we would expand the salary to meet that number?
No, the way the study came out is we set the salary range for those positions. But we recognized that on a temporary basis, because of the big dig, there was a higher demand for transportation engineers. They were all working on the big dig. So we knew that would only be a period of time that would be an issue. So rather than adjusting the salary schedule up to be more competitive, so to speak, we said we're not going to adjust. We think the salary range in normal circumstances is the correct salary range. What we'll do is we'll insert this stipend onto the salary, just an $1,800 annual stipend, and that's why we called it that.
All right. Now my question is: were these individuals new hires at the time?
No, they were current.
They were
staff.
current employees, and they were currently receiving compensation within the county's compensation plan.
Within the current compensation plan that we
Then
had.
what
then.
was the reason for increasing them? Because they were going to leave and go to the big dig, or because it was just recognized that they should be paid more because of the competition?
At that time, we reviewed all of the positions in the county, and we looked at comparable positions in the towns, in regional planning entities, in the state. We kind of looked at where was our salaries relative to everyone else, and we adjusted all of whatever salaries that we needed to adjust. We adjusted. There were actually a couple of the salary schedules were adjusted down, and what we did was those individuals we froze. We just froze them until they caught up, so to speak. So we dealt with everybody on a global basis at that point in time. Readjusted the salaries based on some market comparisons in the public sector, of course. And I don't remember whether those positions. I believe the salaries were probably even the ranges were adjusted up somewhat, but not not exorbitantly.
Okay, I have another question.
I have a couple more. My other question: why was it called a stipend? I mean, because the stipend
To
has
differentiate it from your base salary, it was an additional payment recognizing a different market condition. For
Okay,
those
now
staff.
when this stipend was offered to them, did they understand that it was temporary, that it was only going to be for a specific period of time?
I believe they did. Yes.
So was there anything in writing that that this is what they would receive as a stipend, that it was temporary, and that at some point when the market conditions changed, that their positions could be
I don't believe there's anything
reevaluated?
in writing with the individual staff members, no, because we don't have a contract or those types of things.
Oh, so they're not members of a union.
There's no union.
There's no union.
And
So, but was it their understanding though that it really would be temporary?
Well,
and
I
there'd be
believe
some-
so.
You believe so?
I would argue that. It was clear that that was the case in the salary study at that point in time.
can I ask, are these the same individuals that received that then? They're the same engineers? That were, they were hires at the time.
Yeah, whether there's been turnover, I
And
couldn't tell you.
So
right
it's,
now.
so as far as we know, why would that be continued with a new hire?
Clay, I think is certainly
Is the same one?
It's the same one, and I'm not sure who the other two are.
Okay. Let's not, we don't have to talk about them.
Yeah, I think at least 2 out of 3 are the same.
So they've been our employees for over 8 years. And they've relied on this for over 8 years.
Yeah.
Now, and it comes from a state highway grant. So they actually charge the state for a service these individuals do. It's not really, it's looked at in our books as a stipend to the state. They're being billed
It's just part of their
individually.
salary. Yeah, it's just part of their salary. Yeah.
And so it's just part of their salary.
From the state's perspective, yeah.
Okay.
You know.
And so it has never. So this was decided to be done instead of just upgrading the salary for these individuals.
Correct, because we kind of recognized that it was a temporary market.
Right. But
issue.
if that was 8 years ago, what is the market today?
Well, that's why we asked. That's kind of the second part. I think that goes to kind of Bill's point about the whole policy issue. So, Paula has raised this issue about the engineering stipends, given the fact that we had frozen our salaries, our steps, our COLAs, all kind of increases on the salary piece. And he raised that question. Maggie asked Mark Morse, who's the MMA Consulting, who did the original study, and he's done the salaries. He's quite familiar with our salary structure. He's done it numerous times. He's been the consultant we've used to do the review, to do the job descriptions. Maggie asked him to review that, and you have that report in front of you. and he basically says, that it was, he remembers it was temporary. As I recall, the stipends were intended to be a temporary measure to affect the competitiveness of transportation positions at the time of the implementation, et cetera, et cetera. And his...
Excuse me, you said that report is in front of us? Where is it?
You didn't get it? Maggie sent you...
She sent us a copy.
She sent you a copy of it. You need a copy? Yeah, it's probably in your email.
Where did it?
Yeah, I printed it off from an email.
It was sent off of, was it Friday she sent it?
Yeah, from MMA Consulting Group.
Right. So he looked at the salary of mid-level civil engineer for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and what that range was currently, and he examined the 11th annual CE News Salary Survey, which presents national trends on civil engineering. CE, that's what it is. Civil engineering salaries, and he does suggest that there's some limited data on this, but it does also suggest that the current wages for the position in the county, as discussed above, are within acceptable ranges. Don't forget, this is all kind of adjusting. Nothing matches perfectly. You try to do the best you can in terms of matching it. Yeah. So he believes that right now the stipend is not warranted. He also, at the end, raises, I think, what Bill's trying to raise as a point. I would tend to agree with it, that once you freeze salaries in one place, he says when salaries are frozen, all positions are covered, notwithstanding the source of funds. The argument of this policy is based on the principle of equity.
Okay. My question is, I have no problem with all the salaries being frozen, but this, by taking this stipend away, this is their salary. They're not getting a COLA. They are having a decrease in their salary, and they're the only 3 employees that are going to have a decrease in their salary. So why is that? How do we make that equitable?
The argument on that would be that originally was a temporary measure,
But
anyways,
that
it
really,
would have gone
that was
away.
8 years ago, and it's not in writing. So what do we do for this to make this equitable today?
Well, I go
with all
back
other
to
employees.
that point. It was always intended to be a temporary measure, and that it would have gone away at some point in time, whether there was a salary freeze or not, because their salary range and where they are is comparable to where other civil engineers or transportation engineers would be.
So if we bill this amount to the state, so what do we say now? Do we say to the state that their work isn't worth that much? I mean, what do we say to the state?
It's
If this is work they do for the state, how do we justify not billing for that?
well, you would say that their salary is less. That billing amount is less
And-
because the stipend's no longer.
And how do we justify
Relevant.
making their salary less when everybody else's has just been frozen?
Well, it goes back to this always being a temporary measure, and it would have gone away at some point. And the question is, at what point?
Well,
Okay,
go
I
ahead.
do have to ask the question though, because of other employees. Do we have any other employees who receive stipends?
Not like that.
None.
No.
Everybody's compensation is within the
On
compensation
the salary
plan
range,
and the
yeah.
salary scales.
Yeah,
So these are the only positions that have a stipend.
that's right.
And the rationale for not implementing it this year is because it falls under a freeze? Is that the rationale?
The rationale for not implementing it would be based on the market conditions for transportation or civil engineers, is that it's no longer warranted. And that was going to happen eventually at some point anyways. The question
Well,
is when.
It was a question of when. I'm just trying to think about then why now?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just really trying to assimilate. I can understand because I remember very well the situation with the Big Dig when I was in human resource and we had to raise engineer salaries at that time, and so I'm very.
And how much
familiar
did you
with that.
raise them?
Well, we only had, but it depends on whether or not they were. What's the term? Stamped.
PE.
Yeah, the professional
engineers.
engineer. If they, we probably had 2.
Did you since lower their salaries? Do you know? Probably not.
They
Well,
I mean, that is an
they
issue.
increased
Shoot,
their-
good
Well,
point.
one was
It's
a
an issue.
department head, so
Could
that
be-
made it.
even-
that made a big difference.
Even as I said, we had a couple of positions where competitively the salary would have been lower, but do you lower their salary? No, you freeze them.
Yeah.
right.
Well,
I
So
think
I don't
the-
understand
well, the
why we're
issue-
doing something different with these 3
Well,
people.
I guess that maybe that's a
Especially
I
when
have
it's
a question.
okay, just a minute. Especially when it's from another. You will be recognized in a moment.
Okay, and I hope they don't get interrupted.
Excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
I think we need a protocol, a decorum
Please.
protocol.
Yes.
I mean, if this is
Maybe there's a compromise.
if this is a funding issue, if this is something that we bill outside of it's a state highway grant. I do not understand why it's an issue today. I don't understand where the equity is when everything is frozen. They get a decrease.
It's not an issue from the source of the funds. You're absolutely right with that. The issue
So
on
why
the
are we making it an
decrease.
issue?
The issue on the decrease is this was a temporary measure and eventually would have gone away anyway.
Well, maybe we should-
The question becomes is how do you
do it?
avoid a situation where you're reducing someone's salary?
Right.
Exactly.
And we write to them that maybe in next year's budget this might occur, but why do we have to do that now if the funding is there?
See, I
Here's
think
an idea, and that just goes back to the point that I made about these positions where the salary schedule got adjusted down, but the person who was in it, you kind of froze them until they catch back up.
Exactly.
I'm sure most of these people are at their top step, so a step is not going to be the issue here. The issue is really what COLA funding might be in the future, so to speak, if you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So what you do is you freeze their
So
salary.
if you
don't take away the stipend, but the next time you get the COLA, you calculate what that would have been, and I can't do that quick in my head. And if the stipend amount is less than the COLA, then they would get the difference between the COLA amount and the 1,800 stipend. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. See,
And then then everybody be even, so to speak.
But this should be discussed with them and given forewarning, since they've been employees of ours for over 8 years.
Well, that might be a fair
Well-
way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is that, and I agree that the stipend is not really, a really good, probably thing to do, because I remember being involved with somebody who had a stipend, and it always raises huge issues. And now I'm not even sure, going forward, if it even is considered part of wages under the new definition that the state is coming up with for compensation.
Well,
so that's
Don't-
another.
Pat,
That's going
don't
to.
open
I don't
that
want to
box.
open that can of
Leave
worms.
that box closed.
Okay, I'll leave that box
because
closed. But I do think that when you talk about freezes, you talk about keeping people where they are, mostly. You don't change where somebody
I
is,
agree.
whether it's a COLA, a merit increase, a step, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
You freeze them at the point at which they are, and they don't get any increases until such time as we see.
The stipend's
But I
easy
do
to give
they-
and hard to take away. That's just the
Right.
problem.
Well, it is because you're actually reducing someone's salary.
I don't disagree. That's
And-
a good point.
And I think that's a pretty serious thing to do.
Mhm.
And granted, even though it was done with all the good intentions of being a stipend and it was going to be temporary, and we're giving you this additional compensation because of the market out there, and and now the market isn't as great. But you're right. It's like a person who you mentioned. You do a job description analysis and you find out that somebody is overpaid by $10,000 a year. We had that happen too.
Yeah.
And so what do? You don't take it away, you let them catch up to at some point. And in some cases it takes a while for the person to catch up. So I see it more, I don't see it in the same context as a COLA, a step increase,
Right.
or a merit. I see it as something entirely different, created on its own for a particular reason other than the normal language and pieces to a compensation plan. So that's why I'm inclined, and if I think if employees see this differently, then I think it needs to be explained enough. I mean, I'm leaning more toward not reducing someone's salary. I don't think any employee would want to see their salary reduced.
And Billy, I know you wanted to ask a question.
So I'm leaning in that direction, actually.
I'm just looking at a 2% COLA on the 69,000 salary, which I believe is about the top of our step. They're all in the top step. That's almost $1,400. So on one COLA, that will get hit. So they'll catch up basically in 1 year plus a small portion of next year's 2% COLA.
I think that's really a fair and appropriate way to do this, rather than just bang, we're taking away your stipend. And then we have something from Mark that shows we've done the comparables
We've
for
kind of
positions
addressed that
similar to
issue.
yours.
Yeah.
We've addressed this issue. Here's what the results of the compensation analysis shows
Yeah.
us, comparables from various places. This is a fair wage for your position,
Right.
and we want to bring your wage in line with that, but we're going to do it in an incremental
Yeah,
way.
it does have the effect of adjusting the salary schedule up $1,800 essentially over a year and a few months. So
Bill,
But that would be appropriate, would it?
it would be
not?
appropriate, yeah,
Yeah.
because the same thing would happen over time.
Over time
anyways,
anyway.
because of your COLA. Your COLAs always bring the salary schedule up because the COLAs are on the base.
Yeah.
Bill, what would you, do you have a question? Would you like to make a comment on this?
How do you see this in relation to steps and merits and
Well,
COLAs? I see it so
I see
differently.
it from several levels.
Okay.
I see that everybody that works for us has an interest in making sure that they get rewarded for the effort that they put in. I see that in this budget that we did, we got the cooperation of our unions, we got the cooperation of our management to look at reducing the impact on our budget because of reductions. I see that we have artificially created a expectation on the part of employees based upon what they got. I see that when we made the budget, and it was very clear that we were going to build the transportation department for money to come to the Cape Cod Commission. At that time, it was up to the Cape Cod Commission to indicate that that money was going into that particular salary if they believed that that was a matter of equity. Since they did not, I'm led to believe that beyond an oversight, I believe that that they were supporting the position that was in the budget that they submitted to us and that we approved. That was indicative of a wage freeze. Wage freeze being the permanent money. What you're leading to here, in my opinion, is by supporting the stipend. And I don't say that it's not deserved, and I don't say that the people that are involved have not made a significant contribution to the let's say to the progress of of the county. But there are many others that have done the same thing. But what I do see is that you are now, the next step in this path is to do the following. Now that you have approved the support of the continuation of what was considered to be a temporary measure, you have raised the expectation of when it goes away, you now have to add that back to their salary.
Now, well, let me just say,
I'm just saying that that's
Yeah.
my
That's
opinion.
fine, that's your opinion.
but see,
Okay.
I think that we have a process right now. If a person's position is downgraded, let's say it was a grade 18 and now it's going to be a grade 15, then we have a process in place where that person is allowed to catch up, so that when they're
Excuse me, do we?
yes,
Never
we
have,
do.
never.
Never done that.
I wouldn't say that. I can
We
point
don't say
to
that?
in our personnel policy procedure it says this, but I can say never in the time that I have been here has your body ever reduced the salary.
Of an
We've
individual.
always either frozen it, and I know there's been
And
a
allowed
number of
the catch
instances,
up to
and
occur.
allowed them
Right.
to catch up.
Exactly.
And I think that because we have that practice in place, regardless of what caused it, whether it was a downgrade of a position or whatever, this is kind of a similar thing. The additional compensation was added but called a stipend because it was never intended that it would be permanent, that the position would stay within the grade. So now, in essence, what we want to do is maintain the grade as it has been established and not have the stipend. So to do that, you allow the person to catch up to
Right.
the grade to catch up to the individual in the same way as you would if it were downgraded.
I just wanted to respond to Bill too, and unfortunately, irrespective of Mark's point here, and I agree with his last point there about it's based on equity, not on the source of funds. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
that's
forget
not
the
how
source of funds.
that's not how the real world works.
Right.
And I can point to a situation, Bill, where we've just had a change, and that's Children's Cove. When we built the budget for 2010, we did not include the $65,000 from DSS. They have since got awarded that $65,000 from DSS. And of course, because it's an outside source of money, we're going to use that money first. We're going to spend that on salaries, we're going to spend that on fringe benefits. But that creates now $65,000 in our budget that we built that the Cove could have access to, and we are going to propose that we do a transfer out of those lines, use that money for advertising, which, as we know, is an important piece of the Cove's business plan, I guess, for lack of a better word. That advertising helps people recognize that these issues are out there, and it gets people to come forward. So,
Is that money to the county, or is that specifically to the Cove?
well, it's specifically to the Cove, but the Cove is the part of the county. So,
Then why wouldn't we
it's DS
consider using that money to provide step increases and support for? Other
Well, we budget it for the Cove. You could use it for whatever we want, but we think we think its best use is for the Cove. And remember, we severely cut. In fact, we didn't fund at all their advertising budget, and so we think that that's a key piece. So it goes back to the kind of equity issue. So because the Cove was resourceful or lucky or whatever word you want to use to get that $65,000 grant from DSS, which they have gotten actually twice as much since their inception, really. Last year was the first year it got cut. Should we punish them? I mean, they could make the same argument that, wait a minute, that's my $65,000 that I got. You're going to take that and use it somewhere. You're going to use your county money somewhere else. So equity is always kind of in the eye of the beholder somehow.
Well, it occurs to me then that if any department is able to raise external funds, why wouldn't they be eligible to use that to?
Typically they are. Typically they are. And
Well,
you do raise a good point. Maggie has made this argument before. She said, wait a minute, I've got all these funds from my energy efficiency program. This is what I would say. This is what we said when we built this budget and delivered it to the Assembly. Froze steps, we're freezing the COLA. But we will look at this in January. We will look at what our revenues are. We will look at where we are, and I would suggest that's what we do. In January, we go through a process which either involves MMA Consulting or Maggie and myself and you as a board, and we look at what are those positions that you're talking about that may have external funding sources. Maybe don't forget, we did include a small salary reserve in the budget. Maybe, and we can calculate that out, we'll have the wherewithal to do a 1% COLA for half of the year. Revenues are up in real terms.
From the Assembly.
It was the
We did. We included a small.
No, but the Assembly didn't approve that.
They
Yeah, they
approved
did.
it.
Yeah,
There's
they
a
did.
small
Yes, they
did.
salary reserve piece. They cut down the full COLA, but
Okay.
there's still a small
Right.
salary
Right.
reserve
Right.
piece in there. So I think it's a valid point. I don't disagree with it. I would make the same argument that it's not fair to give you money and say tough luck for you. I'm
Yeah,
You're in the
freezing
wrong
yours.
department, right.
But
However-
there's a process and a mechanism
And
that
it's-
we have said we would use
Right.
to deal with that.
And I think
Yeah.
that there is a
And
way
this
to-
is called redlining.
It's called redlining.
It's
That's
called
exactly what
redlining.
you're doing.
When you
You're
have a
saying, okay,
position
you
that
three
now
people,
exceeds
we're gonna-
where you want it to be, it's redline.
Right. What we're really
And that
doing
means-
is factoring out the stipend. Not stipend anymore.
Mhm.
It's gonna be part of your base
Part of
salary.
your base
However,
salary.
You need to catch up,
That's
so to
right.
speak.
Excuse me, does that, just so I'll understand it, because it's not clear to me, that you are now saying that if the stipend is not supported by a state grant, that we're going to make it up? Is that what you mean by redlining?
No, it's independent
redlining
of the
means-
source. It's
Redlining
independent
means the
source.
person isn't eligible for any further increases until their position falls within the
It catches up.
grade within
What-
the
what is-
Since
compensation.
they're already within the grade, it's at the top of the grade.
They're
now.
probably at the top.
They're probably at the top step, but can I ask, in this gentleman's assessment, it's within the range. I mean, so the range could be, so we could be in the middle of the range.
Right.
What keeps us from just giving them the salary? I mean, in January or in our next budget, just say, all right, the
Well,
stipend stuff is too messy.
Essentially, that's what you'll be doing. Because what you're doing is you're erasing the stipend, which was independent of the salary range, and you're folding it in. So don't forget, every time, so you have a salary range, and let's say the salary range is from $1 to $10. When you do a 2% COLA, that salary range goes from $1.02 to $1.20, $10.20.
Yeah.
It goes up that 20%. It adjusts. So the next time we do a COLA, that salary range will adjust. And what you're saying is their salary then will be that particular number, and they'll have caught up, so to speak. It takes about a year and a couple of months,
Yeah.
but
Before the top step, before
exactly.
the top step reaches where they are now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
So they become red line until they reach the top step,
Exactly.
and then they're eligible for further increases
Exactly.
as they are
Right.
appropriated.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm having trouble coming to terms with just using a COLA, let's say to compensate or to make up for what, for the benefit we're proposing in this case. And I just think that in dealing with all of the other employees, that the perception sometimes is greater than reality, is that we basically allowed this, but we're preventing that. And since I have a particular interest in the energy efficiency part, since that is in external funds, I saw with merit the argument that Maggie was making for the Cape Light Compact, and I think that perhaps this is an opportunity to say that we're doing this and allowing some opportunity, some hopeful opportunity for the rest of the employees to make a case for them increasing their salary by getting access to external funding. I think that to me would be, that to me seems to be in the direction of the argument that I hear from you, Pat.
Well, no, mine is more maintaining the integrity of the
Right.
compensation system. That's my whole point.
Okay.
Now, but there's no one else who accesses external funding for compensation, or there is?
No, there is. It's all.
Because
to me,
that-
they're two separate issues. And
Yeah.
that's why,
We can
Bill,
discuss this.
I am hesitant to jump right on your argument. I tend to agree with the equity piece of it, but the focus right now is, unfortunately, maybe that's how I should portray this. Will I ever, in a salary study, do a stipend again? No. It's easy to, like I said, it's easy to
It's
give it. It's
good
hard to
thing
say,
when you-
take it away.
That's
So so we're faced with the singular issue that we have this stipend that we gave to somebody a long time ago, and now its temporary nature has expired, and now we're faced with taking it away, which is a very difficult thing to do. I agree. It's very difficult for anybody to reduce someone's salary without some kind of
Real
disciplinary
true-
process or
and-
something.
And
So
real true justification.
yeah. So how do we deal with this? So the traditional way that we have dealt with it, and other bodies, public bodies especially, have dealt with it, is you redline that. You freeze them in that position, into that salary position, until they kind of catch up with the rest of the salary range.
But don't we also have to deal with this whole issue of external funding? I mean, because doesn't that
We do, and
somehow compromise the integrity of the comp system?
But it really, no, the
No?
external funding doesn't
Doesn't?
compromise your funding schedule. I mean, your salary schedule. Your salary schedule is what it is. It doesn't
but then-
matter whether the money comes from the state or DSS or from the Energy Efficiency Fund. It
But
is
they-
what it is.
Oh, but their salaries are still within the compensation
Oh,
system.
yeah,
That's just
absolutely.
part
That's-
of that
that's-
is funded
Right,
externally.
yeah,
It isn't in addition to.
No, it's not in
Oh,
addition.
okay.
It's part of the
That-
salary
okay.
schedule.
So
And that is what
the integrity.
If the money's available, then you
That's Maggie's argument.
Right,
Wait a
that's the
minute,
other
you
one.
froze
That's
the
right.
people in energy efficiency, even though their fund is full of money.
Right.
Is that equitable? That's what I suggest
Oh, then
we
why-
address in
That's what
January.
we have to address
Oh,
that in
we'll
January.
address it in
Absolutely.
January.
And we may
Right,
find
in
that
addition
you
to
may
the COLAs,
decide.
and make everybody whole.
We'll make
But-
them, we'll make them whole, and for everybody else, we can afford, and I will do those calculations,
Mhm.
a 1% half year COLA.
Right.
Okay.
That kind of keeps the labor piece, because I agree with
Yeah,
you.
you
Bill.
really
that's an
have
No,
to
it is.
be
It's-
very
it-
sensitive to
Exactly,
that.
exactly.
We
It does,
do
we
have
can't be
labor
looking like
peace.
we're doing for one without the
Yeah.
other, but this is something that we would be doing against these three individuals that is not being done against the others.
I have
You're taking a
one,
decrease. Yes, Bill?
one further question. In the event, and there has been turnover, in the event that they leave,
Oh, yeah.
do these people, or the people that replace them, are they going to be eligible for this salary and stipend?
The salary, because of the way the process will work, and I think this is right, I think through it a second, but the entire salary schedule will adjust up. So it won't be an issue. You see what I mean? Because the salary schedule, as COLAs increase, it will be adjusted up anyway.
And they won't receive a stipend.
They won't receive a
They
stipend.
will be
No,
hired
they'll be
within
part
the
of the
grade
salary that they're being
established.
They'll be
Right.
hired
Right.
within the grade, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's how you do it, you phase it out.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I would be more comfortable with this if we had already, if we were on record that we were actually going to transfer some of the, make that policy decision with regard to external funding.
It's an established practice right now for other
It really is,
issues
yeah.
within the system.
So you're really
And simply-
grandfathering these individuals in.
Yeah.
The new hires won't receive a
Well, not-
stipend, but they'll
right.
be on the salary
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
schedule that's there, which, Marcus said is a fair market salary
Mhm.
schedule.
Yeah,
And that way, you don't reduce anybody's.
right.
you know,
I think that
Okay.
sounds fair, and in January we will.
And then we'll look at everybody
Go ahead,
else
Bill.
in January.
All right, that's.
Right.
I'll ask Maggie, Maggie, can you take a look at all the people that you know, and we'll ask the department heads,
Yeah.
who is on, who has external
External.
sources of funding that may make a freeze, that have sources that can increase their salary, how it would have been before the freeze, without impacting the county general fund. And we'll look at that.
Yeah, and let me ask another question. Do we have any employees whose positions are totally funded by a grant or from an external source?
We used to.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Now, do they understand that if that grant went away, that they would no longer be employed?
Oh, yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just
I'm
want
trying
to
to
be.
think of which ones that are out there.
Well, we don't have to
There's a couple
discuss
of
that.
No, I'm
I
just
know,
trying to-
but
yeah.
it's related, and I
Um,
think. But
I think this is good, and I think this is something we need to do in January. I mean, this is the problem with, I think, freezing COLAs and steps, because my feeling on this, on a budget, crisis of what we've been in, things do pick up, things do come back, things can be made whole, and if you, in some ways, you're almost punishing your employees because of the times. I understand that this is something you have to get through. However, it opens up the doors for very
It creates these other inequities.
sticky,
Right.
Yeah,
very
and,
sticky
I mean,
situations.
And
So
we have an
I think
established
it's the,
practice that this is consistent
and sometimes
with
it's just
it, and I think that's and it's phased.
symbolic
It doesn't
gestures.
cause
Yeah.
any harm to the
You're right.
individual.
And I think this is a fair
a
and
sound
equitable
practice.
and a fair compromise.
I think so.
Okay, I agree.
So, if I may surmise it, what we are going to do is grandfather the existing individuals into their current salary structure, which includes the stipend,
Right.
but that will become part of their normal salary as we progress through COLA steps, and they'll be, I hate to use the word redlined, it sounds so...
I know, redlining
Yeah, it sounds like they're
terrible.
being taken away,
That's
but-
kind
Yeah,
of
it
an internal
sounds-
sort of
yeah.
word lingo, but
It is.
grandfather.
They're grandfathered in, and their salary will be. I'll think of the word. You know what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I hate to say freezing their salary,
No,
but
we know,
it's
But
really
it'll be
not
brought up.
frozen.
It'll be brought up to where it should be, and then
They will
and then kept
maintain
there.
their
Yeah.
current salary until it becomes
until the salary schedule itself catches up.
catches
through
up.
COLAs.
And
Exactly.
yes.
Okay.
I think Maggie will be. I
I'll
think she'll
make
be
that
okay
motion.
with that.
Yeah, 'cause she understands. Yeah, she understands all that.
Yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
And it's going to be better in the end
Yeah,
for
I mean
her
that's
as well.
good
Yeah.
personnel practice,
Which is-
and it's good
And
compensation
it's time that we look
planning.
at that.
I think.
Pat
And I
has
think
made
Paul will be comfortable with that.
I hope so. I think he should be.
Yeah, I think he will be.
I think it would be.
Are you comfortable with that, Bill?
I have to say that I still have, serious reservations because we're speculating about what we might do in January. I'm sure that the intention, as I hear it right now, is there, but I still have reservations about being on record on supporting something that I have been so adamantly opposed to up till now. So I would suggest to you that in this vote I probably would abstain rather than take a position on it.
That's fine, and I say aye, so I second the motion and
Okay.
agree, so,
So I'll
Thank you.
on it as abstaining.
okay.
All right. Did you want to talk about
What is the-
Bob Troy request that you had? That Bob Troy.
Yes, he seems like he wants some clarification
I
on
think
that.
that's
Although
what
he
he
and I had a
wants.
big conversation about this some time ago, and he seemed to understand what I was saying.
Yeah, I think it would be.
What are the issues? Can we
Okay.
talk about what the issues
Yes.
are? I was going
Well-
because I'm thinking the assembly. Weren't you? And you have questions about the assembly. They're an elected body. They don't report to anybody but the voters.
Okay, what I was asking was, and my point is,
Yeah.
you are elected to a governmental body,
Right.
and it is a legislative and executive branches, and it even goes beyond. It's a county-wide position. Your allegiance should be to the county because you're being elected to the county board of legislators. And yet, in every other branch of government, if you're elected to be a state representative to the House of Legislators, you get some training as to what is the protocols, what is the powers of that body, as opposed to the executive branch, and how do you make arguments or put forward proposals in response to maybe disagreements with the executive branch or however. Where is your line of power and authority? Where is that of the executive branch? That is all being trained. If you're elected to Congress, you are given some training. You're elected to the assembly and you're just thrown out there and you're given a book saying, read this, and it's about this big. And to me, sometimes, and I think this could be, maybe you could disagree with me, but there are times it seems as though people sort of make up, they kind of just go from what's before them and respond, as opposed to knowing what it is they can hold the commissioners accountable to, what we can hold the assembly accountable to. I think it's just a good time to have some sort of training as to the lines of authority and power.
Well,
And Bob
they don't
seemed to
have
very
really-
much agree.
they don't really have lines of authority, but don't you look to the charter to see what their
That's what it is.
authority
this
is?
This is like
It's
Charter
all
101.
in the
It's
charter.
Charter 101.
And they need to understand what their role is in the charter and their
Exactly.
boundaries
Exactly,
within
and
that.
that's all I want.
In
I
which-
just want it to be an open discussion so that so it's clear
So
to
you want
everyone at the
someone
same
to
time.
educate them about what their role is in
We
the
could all
charter?
sit in there. I'm not going
I
to
think
just
it's
point
for.
to them.
I would
think
say it
it's-
would be for
But
everybody.
one
I
of
think
the
it's gonna be
questions
for
you
everyone.
asked in there, though, was what is the Assembly's authority over departments such as the EDC?
Well, this is something that the EDC has requested of me because they do keep asking the EDC to come before them, and it is one of those things. And Mark can attest to this. It gets to the point where you start not wanting to go.
Well, you're always suspicious.
Because you are being attacked from these different, number one, they don't put the questions on the agenda. You don't know what you're going to face. And if it's going to be discussed in a meeting like this, it should be at least put on an agenda. But these things kind of come out of the blue and you're being interrogated. So they would like to have the EDC come before them and explain their new vision. And the EDC, since they have been now sort of severed from county funds, are wondering how much they're happy to do this into different, like they can go to before the economic team there and discuss their new economic strategy that they're employing, or they can go before the assembly. They just want to know what it is they have to be subjected to.
Well, the new
That's
open meeting
basically
law,
it.
the new open meeting law that goes into effect in July of 2010 says that the agenda, the chairman has to set an agenda that clearly outlines what is going to be discussed at the meeting reasonably. Meaning, whatever it is you're going to talk about, you have to put on your agenda.
Right.
It's not on your agenda, you ought not to be
you're not
talking
supposed
about.
Right, you don't have
So
to
we
answer the
need to
question.
get in training too, because this isn't
Right.
on our agenda.
Well, we are
today.
having training with
So
you.
we have to
We
get
won't
our
get
own
that.
training about
Right.
the agenda. The same would be true for the assembly. They're a public body, so they need, in their agenda, and if they want to bring somebody in to talk to them, they should let them know why, what it is they want to talk about, and please come prepared with, or provide us with, X
Yes.
information prior to the meeting so that we can discuss this. And I think it's appropriate for them to ask them to come in, but they should let them know
Why?
what information they're looking for, and if they want any information ahead of time.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So they have no authority over them in a sense, but they are part and parcel of.
I have to.
you
There's a
think
couple
have
of things,
authority?
a couple of
Yeah,
phrases.
because they approve
Severed
the
from county funds. See, this is again goes to the argument about the source of funds. The source of funds doesn't matter.
Right.
The EDC is a county department. There's
That's
an
right.
administrative code that
Yeah.
says they're a county department.
Mhm.
They're under all the rules and regulations that govern every other county department. So they're subject to your direct authority,
Exactly.
and they're subject to the authority that the charter gives the assembly.
Right.
And that's pretty broad in terms of review and investigation. I think it says quite clearly in the charter that the assembly can call any department in anytime they want and ask them questions.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can do that. I mean, that's quite clear in the charter. I do tend to agree with you, though. It should be less of this gotcha atmosphere. I think it is now, and more of we want to educate ourselves about.
Right.
I think
Right.
this is all
Yeah,
about
the
the
SEDS
SEDS
project. Please
and
come
the
in.
funding for the kind of large scale license plate funding for the SEDS program. That's really what they want to know about. Now, is there going to be some, questions about, well, why are you doing that, and where's the funding going? Yeah, of course there are, but those are probably legitimate questions from the Assembly's perspective, even though we may detect a hint of other agendas out there. So,
Bill,
Right.
you wanted to?
Yeah, I have several things to say about this. As you remember, we've been involved with the EDC
Right.
from its
Get
beginning.
going, right.
And in that period of time, we've gone through several iterations. One was there was just a transfer of license plate money. The commissioners and the assembly agreed at the inception that we would use county funds in order to support the administrative overhead. Over time, there's been resistance to using county funds, and they've now gone to the point of using the license plate money for that. That allows us as county commissioners to say that we could have eliminated the employees in that department and then turned over the grant administration piece directly to the our resource development office. We could have taken that position. We also could take the position that the Economic Development Council, which is an advisory board, it's not their money. They rely upon our approval to go forward. We did approve that use of the money in the last budget because we said that the assembly who took the money out, who defunded the administrative budget that came out of county funds, said they were taking that money out of license plate money. We could have disapproved that budget, and if we disapproved the budget under the present charter arrangement, we would have gone into a negotiation, and we could have, we could have come to that, see some sort of arrangement. Well, we chose not to do that. At this point, we're faced with this question. We have approved that the Economic Development Council could put $350,000 a year into the Cape Cod Commission, with the Cape Cod Commission now taking responsibility for the application of those funds. We've essentially reduced the amount of responsibility that the Economic Development Council has with regard to at least to the amount of money that they allocate, because I don't believe that there's more than $50,000 left. So the question I think that would be raised over the assembly is, what is the Economic Development Council doing now that they've transferred the responsibility of the application of funds over to the Cape Cod Commission? You may recall that when we set up it was a transfer because the Economic Development Council that preceded it went to the Chamber of Commerce, and that it was
Right.
important for us to get money out in the street at that time, which we did. We proved that we could be a viable organization. Now that we've taken that, we restored the piece that says that the Cape Cod Commission is responsible for economic development activities in the county, and by funding them in that way with the support of the advisory council, I think we have to look at where those lines of authority are. And I'm speculating that that's maybe the question that the Economic Development Council feels that the Assembly is going to put to them. Since we approved their action, we have the responsibility of supporting that action. We also, I think, need to remember that the Assembly's role after they approve the budget is oversight to make sure that we have met the promises that we've made in that budget. When they are asking them to come in, I believe that they are within their meeting their responsibility for oversight to have questions answered with regard to the useful application of funds that have been approved for a purpose. They also exercise their authority over the departments by hiring the auditor. The auditor has the responsibility of taking a look at how we operate to give some assurances to the Assembly that we have indeed met. And I don't believe that, I think most of the findings that I've looked at over the years that I've been doing this have been relatively minor, and we've always responded as a county to that. So having said all of that, they should go over at some point. I believe that the open meeting law as a change would give them some, let's say, some ability to prepare. But I want to say something else. 2 years ago, in the budget process, Dan Dre, the department manager, I guess that's what he is, right? Okay, essentially, was not prepared when he went before the Assembly. And that has set up what I would call a sense in the Assembly that they have to take more, let's say, more oversight responsibility. I think it would be very well if this was, if they go over and show that they're well prepared and make a case for the value of their intention. I think that would go a long way of getting us back to where we were prior to that particular time. Mm-hmm. And since we approved that application, I think that we should be prepared to support the Economic Development Council when we go over there.
Well, I just wanted to say, in all fairness to Dan, though, the whole the way the license plate funding works is somewhat complicated, and I think there's kind of a fundamental lack of understanding at a lot of levels about how the license plate funding is worked. Some of that's our own creation because we've called the reserve funds, and the complication really is that a certain amount comes in every year, but not all of that gets appropriated, and it's created a surplus. We don't like those words anymore in the license plate fund, so we call them a reserve. That the reserve has certain connotations that other people don't maybe fully understand. So that's a very complicated area anyways, in all fairness to Dan.
The EDC is meeting tomorrow.
Yes. Right.
And that's their whole topic of discussion tomorrow, is their role in this grant funding, and they have some oversight as well to the funds because they distributed the funds. I mean, in that certain they recommended that the funds
It's
move.
not clear to me
So it'd be
how they
interesting to
see
see
their
what
role as
the
oversight. No, I think they should tomorrow. I would ask you who goes over there for us.
I've been attending just because I wanted to hear what they were saying,
I'm
but she's
the
the
liaison. I'll be there tomorrow.
If you could communicate to them I would like to know how they define their oversight role. And
Well, that's what they're going to talk about tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
It would be. I think it would be important for us to know that, to see whether or not we can support what they see as the extent of their role, as to whether or not it meets what would be, what I would call reasonable oversight, or ones that they're not able to perform because, after all, it is within another department and under other supervision.
But my understanding is the commission would like them to have more oversight, as opposed to they're making all the decisions. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and I think that was somewhat of the agreement in the beginning, but now they're solidifying those roles.
I'm going to see Bob Troy tomorrow because he's coming over to talk about the Corey issue, the Corey checks. We have, now that the sheriff is leaving, we're going to try to figure out how we're going to do this going forward. I will ask him, and him and I will work on a Charter 101.
101, that's exactly,
process.
that's all I
Put
want.
together a
And you can
presentation.
remind him,
He
this
can
goes
give
back
it-
to the conversation he and I had. And I was going to write that, but I just said enough with the emails, we'll discuss this when we get in person. There is one other question I want to, now with Pat bringing up the open meeting law, we have said that we are going to host the Ethics Commission down here on October 23rd, which turns out to be the same day as the American Disabilities Act training that the Human Services has set up
Is it?
and sent
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, it's the same day.
So when I said that last week, Maggie said, "Oh, keep it. This, Giannotti from Ethics is hard to get a
Oh,
hold
yeah,
of."
that's-
But I want this to be, as not mandatory, but as pushed as something that all of our employees and ourselves attend. So what do I do here? I'm feeling very conflicted that we're having two training things in the same week.
How flexible is the?
I'm going to ask if they can do it, but it will be pushing it into
The ADA
November.
has already published
That's okay.
all of their advertising.
So it'll be pushed into November, like the first
ADA is
Friday
out
of
there.
November, which is, what is that, the 5th?
The Friday the 6th.
Yeah. But does Friday the 6th work for everyone here
November?
of November? I hate going that far into it, because now we're pushing right up against a holiday.
Or
but-
the 13th. Either one.
I don't want to go as far as the 13th. Let me see. If the 6th works for people, I would like to be able to do it then.
November 6th.
It works for me. So you're saying you're gonna.
I'm going to ask Mr. Giannotti if we can make that training available
Where
for
are we
the
going to do
6th.
it? We did. Maggie was coordinating this.
Yeah, and I will work it out with her that we will, we'll
The
get,
ethics
I was
training?
trying to get the assembly and
Oh,
Diane Thompson.
I had a
thought that we
question
could
as
do
to
it there.
on this is as to what specifically was going to be covered, and I'm not sure. Is it the open meeting law
Yes.
only?
No, it's going to be the open
No,
meeting
the
law
open
and
meeting-
the new ethics.
But the Ethics Commission doesn't discuss the open meeting law. They usually stick with the conflict of interest
It's
law.
conflict of interest
The,
and,
they're just the Attorney General or the public, Galvin's office with public
Yeah.
records.
no, I
usually
think that's been given
how
over
the
now
open
to the
meeting law-
ethics.
Not
Okay,
here,
so
Galvin's.
again,
That's
what will they
Yeah.
what will they
They will be
cover?
The
talking
AG
about
discusses open
conflict
meeting.
of interest and open meeting laws.
Okay, so
And open
November
meeting laws.
6th.
But they
It's like
don't
a
cover
3-hour
open
training.
meetings?
They
Okay.
don't.
So both, all right.
Both.
Because that was a question I was asked as to what they.
Yeah, it would be
What
both.
time on November 6th?
I was going to make it say, 9 or 10. So
No,
that people,
this is-
it's going to be about 3 hours.
This is for ethics.
Ethics.
At 9?
Is that
We had it 10:30 to 1:30.
10:30 to 1:30? Does that work? Is that better for people? I mean,
I
I'm
don't
asking.
care.
I'm
Right.
okay. It's okay with me. Who do you want there?
I would like to have department heads there,
Department heads, all right.
elected officials. I'm going to send it to the select boards of selectmen for any towns who haven't had this.
The assembly
update.
holds about 50 people. So you have to. So if you
If
get
we get
you
50
guys,
people.
department managers, that's 15. That's about 20. If you get all of them, and so then you've got 30 spaces for 30 other people. If you get all of the assembly, so now you're at the 45. You're almost at
Wouldn't that
capacity.
be great?
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So there's not a whole lot of. You might have to have 2 sessions.
Well, maybe we'll have to ask her to come back.
And you'll have to ask
Or
people
have
to
them do a
respond.
double session
That's
on
what
the
I
same
mean.
day.
Yeah, on the
Right.
same day. So you have to have people respond
Yes, and
and
we
say,
have
I
to
would
have-
like to be
yeah.
coming
Or
on.
morning
blah, blah,
And
in
they
an
did give me a
afternoon.
packet where people will have to respond so that you have people are
Who's
committed.
gonna be
They've said that they're going to be there. They put it on their calendar and they'll be there. And it is an opportunity for other towns to be able to send their people without having to, do an additional meeting.
blah. I'll tell you, I'm not sure about the conflict of interest law, but I can tell you the open meeting law will be
It's
well
gonna be
attended
very
because
heavy.
people are very concerned about that.
And
Right.
and they are really enforcing this. And part of the enforcement is you have got to sign off that you have had a formal training on
Right.
it. It's no longer like, gee, I just read this and that was great.
Well, the other problem that's been raised by people is that that people who have more than 24 hours of contact with the legislature or with other bodies have to register as lobbyists, which means that some of the nonprofits on the Cape who get government or federal money can't receive it if they're identified as lobbyists. So that's a huge problem, and they have to give evidence that they're recording all of the times and dates of their meetings and how much time is involved in discussion. I don't think this was well thought out.
But it has really given the Ethics Commission much more weight, and some of it's now, the open meeting law now comes under the Ethics Commission. It's no longer
No, I
the
don't
Attorney
think so. It's
General.
always the Attorney General.
I think as of January,
No,
is it
the
Jan-
No,
open meeting
January-
law enforcement was in the hands
Of the district
attorneys.
attorney. That's
Now
right.
Now
it's
they're
the
changing
Attorney
it to the Attorney General.
Yeah.
The Attorney
So
General. I'm
the
sorry,
Attorney
you're right.
General's
That's the
office
difference.
really does the training on open meeting law.
Right.
Yeah,
So
supposedly now.
supposedly do, but yeah.
All right, so November 6th at 10 o'clock or
10
so,
o'clock.
you're coordinating it with Maggie?
I will
So
coordinate it with
don't know.
Maggie. I will get a
Moving
hold
it,
of Mr.
right.
Giannotti
Do we have
to
to-
confirm
And
that.
On the
Let me just
ADA
say-
thing.
So Giannotti is with,
The Ethics Commission.
And
And
he
then-
should list the topics that he's
Yeah.
going to
He will.
discuss.
I will have all
Yeah,
of that.
have
They
him
sent
do
me a
that.
packet. And I
who's
will
going
send
to
that
deal
to
with
you.
the Attorney General's office? Because they're
I will do that.
for the open meeting law piece, because I think they're the ones.
I will
Now,
do that.
does Bob Troy do that? Does he do training on open meeting law?
I've asked him that question because I sent him the.
Because usually town
the-
councils will do that.
That chapter, what was it, chapter 68 is, I think, where all that stuff is. Or, I can't remember the chapter name, actually, I do have it in front of me somewhere.
On the ADA thing, can you
Chapter
arrange-
28 is that,
Yeah.
that's where that is.
Okay, I noticed that there's a fee involved. Will you arrange for
A fee
registering
for,
the ADA training on the 23rd
um,
of October?
The
That's
23rd.
that's
Yeah.
Beth's
October.
training, right? The
Yeah.
ADA training.
Right. So in order to, if there's a fee involved with it,
Who's going for that? I didn't think there was a fee. was
Yeah,
there?
it's $35
Oh.
registration. Yeah, I want to go to it.
Are you going, Sheila? Have you?
This
or-
is for. I'm sorry.
This is the ADA one on
The
the
ADA one's
23rd.
on St.
That's
David.
Dennis Church of the Nazarene.
Yes. Yes. I will go to that.
Are you going, Pat? It's up to
Yeah.
you.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I should.
Do we have to pay since it's ours?
I don't know. Find out.
I'll have
Yeah, why would we-
Kara arrange that.
If we're doing it.
Right.
Exactly.
Is,
that's why
is
we-
it because the speakers have to
Could
be
be,
paid?
yeah, I think that's
Do you
what.
think that's what it is?
They seem to get us a discount.
Okay.
Um,
Can we
That's-
talk about
that's
next
okay.
meeting?
Yes. Please.
Before we talk about next meeting, I had some.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Should somebody call Paul and tell him
Yeah,
that he can
that'd be
read
better.
Yeah,
this?
it's almost,
Maybe we
so-
could.
yeah, it's 11:15 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we?
I think it'd be an idea to give them a call.
I think
should
it would be
Kara, do they
courteous
have
to
his
give him a call.
cell phone out there? Or
I might have.
Well, the only question, my hesitancy is if he's on his way back, and
Well,
it's
we can-
already 11 o'clock, and you guys are going to meet anyways, do you want to just meet? I mean, that's
well,
kind
we
of
can, but we should probably find out where he is.
Yeah,
so,
all right.
I mean,
Do you have his cell phone?
Hold on.
I do have his cell phone somewhere here.
Yeah, I have a cell phone. You want me to call him?
Yeah, why don't
sure.
you call him and just ask where he is in this and
He doesn't really have to rush back.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
right.
Message.
I was just looking here.
Hey, Paul. It's Mark Zielinski calling. It's about 11:15 on Wednesday, September 30th. And with the commissioners, they just wanted to let you know that you shouldn't rush back if you're in the middle of something much more important. So they can reschedule your goals session till next week. So
Tell them what the other
why don't you
thing-
give either me a call or Sheila a call back as soon as you get this message.
Or tell them that they approved the other thing he was interested in.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you about the stipends. We came up with a compromise when you call back. Thanks, Paul. Talk to you later. Bye. All right.
Perfect. Okay.
I got a email from, was it Linnell Grunban? I think she's the
Linnell
chair of
Grunban?
Sandwich.
She's
Okay.
having a happy hour.
Start.
That's
I
what
didn't
we
get
did.
that one.
That's the one I got.
Oh, is she?
She was having a happy hour Friday.
Okay, this isn't a happy hour.
Okay.
She thinks it might be an idea for us as commissioners to host an Upper Cape convention for to talk about the bridge.
Talk about the bridge.
Yeah.
I think they had a big meeting up there, did they not?
They had several, I think, big
Yeah,
meetings. They're
with
still
the
working on
Army
big
of-
meetings.
yeah,
Well, no,
and the chamber
I can tell you about what happened at the MPO meeting on that, because the guy
Mhm.
from the Corps of Engineers, who was more of a messenger than anybody who was running anything, came down. And I guess he was sent down to, to take the blows. and he made a report on how everybody was, very concerned, and everybody was talking about it. And but what troubled me, by the way, Tim Madden came. I was very impressed with that. Okay, and Tim Madden and I both brought up the point about contract management, because the time that they're working per day, that was it 2 10-hour shifts. We wanted to know why they weren't working 24 hours a day, and why there wasn't, some time, some time constraint on the contractor, to get it done sooner rather than later, with some type of incentive to move it, move it across. The other part was the idea of traffic management, at the bridge itself, that's something that needs to be addressed, because and I brought this up before, that if they had some type of either a temporary traffic light that would allow entrance from exit 1 on there, or had the cop actually directing traffic to move it along, that might reduce the amount of effort. Their comment on not seeing anybody working is that they're supposedly working on the other side. He also said that since he didn't have any problem with the Bourne Bridge a couple of years ago, that why are we having a problem with this? And I think that, we pointed out to him that 80% of the people who live on the Cape go over the Saginaw Bridge, and only about 20% of the people who live on the Cape go over the Bourne Bridge. And they didn't do the same thing. They just sandblasted the Bourne Bridge, and just to take a look at the surface. They didn't do the same kind of structural integrity examination that they're doing on the Saginaw Bridge. So I think that he was the messenger. You didn't want to murder the messenger, but it was obviously he wasn't the one that could do anything for you. So anyway, those things were brought up, and the MPO, which has the responsibility for the transportation issues, and of course Tim being there, he can bring this message back to the legislative delegation, who have already sent a letter on this to people. So I think we're on top of this. But on answering Leno Goodman, do you have any? Do you have any wish to do that?
I feel that it's look, we're supporting it. I know that the Cape Cod Commission was there. I spoke to Patty Daly about that meeting. I do think that the commission is going to. I mean, they felt that the Army Corps didn't reach out the way they should have done. I think to do another convention or another session is going to not very productive. I
My
think
only
the people
question
who are
would be,
supposed
is
to
it an open
What?
bar?
And what's
No,
the
that's
outcome?
the other thing.
I mean, what are we going to try to accomplish?
Yeah, I know.
Because
Just to
we have
say that
no
we've
authority.
had
I
a
am
yeah.
just
We-
passing on.
Okay, yeah,
know.
I read that too. So
It would be nice if maybe the state legislators would convene an
Well,
open
I think
Cape
they
meeting
have. I
and
think
let-
that. I think
No, but I mean,
between-
if they wanted to do so, they're the ones who can do something about it. We really.
I mean, the chamber was at that
The
meeting. The Army Corps of Engineers. This was the Cape Cod Commission were there. Everybody sort of saw where the problems. There was a lack of communication and planning on the part of the Army Corps of Engineers, and now it's going to cost them more money. And it is the contract. You're right. They didn't set up the contract correctly to do the proper job. The job that needed to be done, they did not write the contract to meet the needs of the job being
The
done.
contract
So you're
was written
correct.
in standard language for a federal project, and there was no outreach to the local
Right,
community.
exactly.
Well, the
Because
good
they
news-
feel they didn't have to.
Right.
The good news
Well, I
is, though,
think
they
that
have responded, at least
Right.
to some
Yeah.
extent, and especially on weekends. It seems better. When I didn't come over the Sagamore, but it came up, the ramp there, and it wasn't, this morning, it wasn't backed up. This
No.
was like at 8:30. It wasn't backed up very far at all, 8:20 or so.
People have begun to develop their
Yeah.
own patterns
Yeah.
of traveling in terms of
Working
time
around
and
it,
how
yeah.
and all of that. So I think that it has made a difference. It's sort of sorted itself out to some degree.
Yeah, which
But there's a huge amount of traffic that goes to the Bourne Bridge now. I
typically
passed this morning
the
at
Sandwich
least
Road is
7
more
big
backed up.
tour buses
Yeah.
coming to the Bourne Bridge.
So.
And then remember that time we found that instead of trying to use the scenic highway, or 6A or whatever they call it, you know, from the Bourne Bridge, cross it and then do that. Remember when we were heading to Worcester, we found that it was just as easy to go up 3, take 44 across, and
Right.
pick up 495
Right.
instead of clogging up all that traffic
Yeah.
at the bridges.
Exactly.
It was a much easier
right.
way.
And if somebody was coming from Bourne, they could go over the Bourne Bridge, go up to 44 and cross over to 3 if
Yeah,
that's what they wanted
and
to do.
still
I mean, it
head
was
up.
very quick. I was
Yeah, that's
impressed.
one that goes through clouds.
That's because, well, they
Yeah.
they completed the highway now.
It goes
Yeah,
through.
right. It's
yeah,
not-
is it
Carver.
Carver?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but it's
the old- that was
44
the
all the
old
way
way.
across the highway now.
Right.
It's great.
But now it's a faster
Yeah.
ride.
I just wanted to talk briefly about next meeting.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I am scheduled at 3 o'clock at the assembly to do the treasurer's report, and then at 4 o'clock they've asked that I give that retirement presentation. So I thought next Wednesday I give the retirement presentation to you first, and that's 2 parts, and you've heard it. It's both the kind of investment update and then the pension reform update. So I could do that.
Okay, in anticipation of getting asked the questions to whether or not we've started asking questions about next year's budget, you might say that I mentioned it to you, or it has been mentioned, that, you know, we're waiting for the strategic plan to come back from the, as I understand it, from the department managers.
Yeah, it's in my hands right now. I've got all the Gantt charts. I need just to put some. Narrative text behind it. So that's what we have.
When will we start to talk about the budget issues?
That was my next thing. I wanted to talk next week about the budget process, because you guys have raised the issue of maybe doing some things a little bit different in the budget process. So I wanted to talk about that.
Okay.
So
And we
we'll
will
pass that on.
and we will ask Paul to come. Do we have time to do
And
that?
then I would suggest that, assuming we don't hear from him or he shows up at our doorstep soon, what I would do is I would do Paul, because next Wednesday we have the assembly. So I would do Paul's goal setting, say at 12 or 12:30. Spend an hour on that. Convene your meeting at 1:30. An hour and a half. I certainly won't need an hour and a half, but knowing how we work, an hour and a half though for the retirement presentation and the budget discussion should be plenty of time. And then you can adjourn. I have to leave at 3 o'clock, so I'm going to be done at 3 o'clock to be over there. Then you guys can do, follow up your discussion if you need to, and then have time to get over to the assembly at 4.
I wanted to
So,
bring up one other
good morning.
thing.
Morning.
October
Oh,
21st
how are you?
is the first meeting of the Cape Cod Regional Transportation Authority Board that Tom
Oh, yeah.
to hear
Mhm.
in it.
It means say Paul. Hi,
And,
Paul.
It's an important board meeting for me, or for that board. And I wondered, since it's an Assembly of Delegates meeting, according to this schedule, that are you still planning to meet in the afternoon that day?
The question was addressed to me. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm asking the other commissioners if I have it. They still have it at 9 o'clock, but I noticed the Assembly of Delegates is meeting that day. We have changed.
The
our
7th
meeting-
you're talking about.
No, the 21st.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
October
Not that far
21st.
ahead.
21st.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask, since we have had past practice of meeting in the afternoon, that perhaps we could consider doing that. Perhaps meeting instead of at 2 at 1, because it seems like we get into discussions and we should leave enough time for our own discussion.
I have it that we're meeting at 11 that day. Why do I have that?
I don't know. We've been all over the board. I
Oh,
have
sorry.
good
We have
news. I won't be here that day. I mean, bad news.
Oh. Yeah, depending on who's
Good for you, bad for us. Huh?
We're at I don't know if you're staying, but we're at Macris. You have the potential. That
That's
you're not
why we're
there.
having
I'm
it
not
at
at
11, I
Macris,
think,
yeah.
because we were trying to work around that.
So it's completely up to your discretion when you have it.
All right. So could I suggest we meet at 1 then? Because would that accommodate everybody?
On the 21st?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
I
that.
don't either.
Um,
And next week we were talking about,
The 7th we're meeting. I would suggest you start at 12:30,
12:30.
and from 12:30 to 1:30 you do the Cape Cod Commission Executive Director goals setting piece, and then at 1:30 convene your regular meeting to do retirement presentation from me, and then a discussion of the 2011 budget process, and then assembly at 4.
Okay. Excellent.
What works?
Okay, so, so on the 7th, we're meeting at what time?
12:30.
12:30.
I think that's enough time. Right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I guess.
Are these gentlemen here to see us, or are they having their own meeting?
We're here to see you under public comment, I guess.
Well,
Okay.
that's surely fine to do. Are we ready for public comment? Is there anything else?
Oh, I wanted to
I'm-
mention that we both of us went to the opening of the Hyannis Youth Community Center.
Yes.
Wonderful business, and I swear to God, if Joe Kennedy III was running for everything, everybody would have voted for him.
Right.
Because he's tall, he's good looking,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
swear to God that everybody was, gave him a standing O. It was amazing.
Yeah, he was,
Amazing.
and he did that very well. And it is an absolutely beautiful facility. I mean, it's really great. So I congratulate all of the Barnstable citizens
Yeah,
who worked
that's
hard to get that together. The other thing is that you did attend. I mean, I showed up and I thought I'd get back with Dr. Macy the training on.
Oh, yeah.
On the suicide prevention, and that was a 2-day course,
Yeah, that was.
and it was very well attended, I thought.
Yeah, it was very intense. There were about,
Uh-huh.
I guess there were about 80 people that started off, and at the end, with different nutrition,
Mhm.
there was about 50 people that were there, were still there at the end. But an add-on to that, the Human Service Committee of the town of Barnstable has talked about the importance of anger management training for some of the families because of the economic situation that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're incorporating that as to one of the goals that they have for them. So I think that those things are tying together. I also did an interview with Maura Weir, who was the project manager for working out of the Mashpee Community Health Center, and perhaps since people are watching this, that if parents or kids are looking for someone that would give them some direction in getting professional support for things that are coming up, that this resource is available. I don't have the phone number for the health center, but it is in the book.
Right.
And that and of course you can also get contact with it through our suicide prevention coalition that's run at the county. The area of focus to begin with is the town of Barnstable and Mashpee, Harwich, and Chatham, I believe, are the areas that they're initially focusing on. And the concern is that there have been completions. That's what they call them.
Mhm.
Here in the Cape, and it's their concern is that they do as much as they can to respond and be sensitive to the things that they're seeing in the community.
Great. All right. Public comment.
Okay. Good morning. The reason I'm...
Could you state your name, please, and
and
rank?
Lee Paraso, Director of Fire Training Academy. I have
Mhm.
with me today retired Chief Paul Tucker from the Dennis Fire Department, who is one of our staff instructors. The reason we're here today is to inform you of a new program we're doing and invite you to same. What it is an awards ceremony, a first annual award ceremony for firefighters across the Cape, dedicated to different individuals who have passed. And Chief Tucker's been working on this now for 5 or 6 months, and it has come to fruition, and I would like him to explain the details to you and what we're doing, and we would like to invite you to attend, and if you choose to speak, that would be nice, and we'd give a slot for you.
Basically what we're doing is, for years on the Cape, we've given awards for EMS recognition, and some of us at the Academy felt that it's time that we all should recognize people for the commitment to the fire service on Barnstable County. And like Lee said, the people that are mentioned here are members of the fire service who really committed their whole life to Barnstable County, and there's a brief little explanation on each one.
Well, Peter's well known to me.
And I will tell you what really brought it to light to me as we were doing the Firefighter 1-2 program. And in doing the program, sometimes you mention someone's name, that this person did that and this person did this. And all of a sudden these kids are looking at us saying, who is Chief Peterson? And with what Chief Peterson did for the Cape Islands, Deputy Chief Rayskill, and it goes, Tommy Manley. The Fire Academy wouldn't be what it is if it were not for Tommy Manley. So we felt that it would be a great opportunity to honor the people, but also to honor the firefighters who make the commitment to the service, and to bring some recognition to the Fire Academy. We would love to see the Assembly of Delegates come. We're also doing an award presentation that's going to be dedicated to Chief Travato from Provincetown. And that's, so we're getting interaction with the call force, because these chiefs, the Firefighter 1-2 program is so important to the Cape that it's something that we have to do. It's the only way we can train our people in this area. The only other chance is going to Stowe, which is that far away that it creates a problem. That's the Mass Fire
No, I
Academy.
know. I always thought it was a Natick, because I was just by it the other day coming back from
No,
the
it's in
Apple
Stowe.
Farm. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It originally, was it in Natick? They years ago they used to have it.
They called it Natick, but I guess it is Stowe, because when you come down the back road from Stowe to get
Yes.
over to Wellesley,
Yep.
to Sudbury,
Yes.
you go right by, and they built up the facility something fierce.
Oh, yeah.
They've got a lot more infrastructure, a lot more buildings. in there.
Absolutely, but the facility down here offers, similar programs, and it's in the area, and the fire chiefs are very concerned, they don't want to lose it. And we just feel this is a real good program, and it's a great tribute to the people that have dedicated themselves as Deputy Rayskill, Chief Peterson, Tommy Manley, and Chief Travato.
I know that Chief Peterson fought for the ambulance service that we have in Harwich. He made sure he built that beautiful facility that we have in Harwich, the fire station. He was always at town meeting, making sure that the people were aware of the responsibility they had to support the fire service because of the support that the fire service and the EMTs gave the community. So he's much missed. Billy Flynn is doing a great job. And he's also come up with some great ideas on regionalization, on ways that we can effectively integrate and use those parts of the administrative activities of the fire service and help make sure that the service is always delivered to the community.
Well, I think Mark will tell you, I've always been a proponent of regionalization. And the Fire Academy really is the one true thing that we have down here for the fire service that's regionalized. It's something that every community has. They utilize it. As a matter of fact, we're also going to have awards for Nantucket Fire Department because Nantucket utilizes the academy. They come over here, they put their people through Firefighter 1-2. We had offered to do the presentation over there. They want to come here and do it. They want to bring their people. We do a tremendous amount of training on the islands for them because we're the closest resource for them. For them to put their people and send them to Stowe, it's a financial burden. In this day and age, when you can have a program put on here where you don't have to pay for mileage and accommodations, this really is a very important part of the fire service of Barnstable County. And
In order to get to Stowe, you really have to go on a lot of back roads in order to get over there. It's not just getting off 495 and going over there.
right, but you get to do your apple picking too, so it's kind of a plus.
When and where?
Barnstable County Fire Academy, 11 o'clock on Saturday, the 24th
Of October.
of October.
Okay.
And hopefully, we are in the Firefighter 1-2 class is presently going on, and we would hope, weather permitting, that we're going to try to have the recruits do a demonstration so you folks can see exactly what we're teaching these kids to do.
I'm sorry, what time was it again?
11 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to try to have, weather permitting, a cookout or something like that.
I'm really
Firehouse
sorry.
hamburgers and
24th,
hot dogs.
I'm scheduled to be coach up at Jackson College, for that day. So.
Yep, that's fine.
But my heart is with all of it. As you know, I hope you know that I believe in what the Fire Academy is doing. I've always been a supporter of it ever since, from the time that I've been on the assembly and on the county, as a county commissioner. And I think you're doing a wonderful thing.
Yeah. It is very important to the fire service in Barnstable County. It's one thing that, everybody understands the financial impact and what's going on the times nowadays, but if we lose the academy, we're going to lose a very, very important part of the fire service on the Cape.
Have you talked to your man, John Oman?
Is this
No.
recorded?
Yes.
Yes,
I
it
have-
is.
We should meet with him.
I have a phone call into Mr. Orman. I am waiting for a return. I spoke with a very close friend of his the other day and expressed my concerns. Lee has provided me with all the information for the amount of firefighters that were trained in each community. It's a lot, especially when you figure
8,000, round figure, in the last 4 years.
3 months out of the year, June, July, and August, we really don't offer a lot of programs because, first off, Barnstable County, you're not going to get anybody to come in those times. One, they are just that busy that you really can't afford to have people out of town. And secondly, because of the weather, it's a concern. So,
In fairness to John Ullman, he does, his main thrust always from the time, because I've been on, I've known him ever since we were elected to begin with,
sure.
has always been what's in the best interest of Barnstable County.
Right.
What's in the best interest of what goes on here. I've always been convinced that our academy is and was, and I think that that slowly but surely you're going to make that impression on him. But
Well,
you need
to be honest with you, when I was chief and dentist, John and I had a very good relationship. John fully supported the fire academy, and I understand that the position now of finances and the financial picture, that you have to take a real hard look at everything, but also there are certain things that you have to look at outside of the box and what the impact is going to be.
And also, in fairness to John, and it is the point well taken by many people, is that for a long time the Fire Academy was able to offer training that brought an income in, and there was a point where you were going to be self-sustaining in that, and that has since, whether it's economics or other departments across the state have had alternatives to go to, that isn't as sustainable, self-sustaining as it once was. And his point is not to take the academy away, but to impress upon the Fire Academy that it should be seeking other sources of revenue to keep it somewhat self-sustaining, and that's a point well taken at this point in time.
Which is what we do.
And I think that's what you're working towards this year, if not.
We're working that way.
Yeah.
We're looking at other things, but as it's turned out, over the past few years, those major revenue-generating programs or things that we could bid on don't exist anymore. They're not there. The MWRA money is gone. There's not that for us to do. There's the power stations that we used to do are either closed or they no longer train. It's not that we don't get it; it's that nobody gets it because they're not doing it.
Can I say something? It's actually
there's an issue with that.
It's actually kind of the history's gotten a little bit muddled here. It's actually, I would have argued it's the opposite, because it was, for a period of time, the Fire Training Academy's emphasis was on external revenues.
Absolutely.
And we had kind of lost the focus of doing the training for the on-Cape departments. And we sort of, I think it was right after we built the new Tom Manley burn building, that we started shifting the focus kind of back to making sure that the training was provided for on-Cape departments. And of course, there's no charge for that. And so we, I think at that point in time, knew that there was going to be, if not a reduction in the income that the Fire Training Academy wasn't going to grow, because the emphasis was changing. So, and I think that was a specific policy direction from the then board. So, and sometimes I think the history's gotten a little bit muddled about that.
If I can ask, how far back does that go?
Oh, we built the
1997.
97. That's what I was going to say. That's when we built the
1987 we
burn
built the
building.
Burn building.
Okay.
And I'd say Tom actually died in this room.
Yep.
Yeah, and after he left, we put Lee in, and we kind of changed the focus at that point in time.
Well, that might not be a bad point to make.
Well, that's why I
think-
wasn't meaning to denigrate John Ullman.
No, I don't either. I think John makes a valid
John's a
point.
friend of mine. I understand.
Yeah, John needs to kind of know that, and we said it to him, and it kind of gets lost sometimes in the shuffle.
Well, I think the thing is, it's so important to Barnstable County that Plymouth County is now looking at building their own fire training facility because of the economics. And
As
it's,
opposed to just coming down here and
Put
giving
it-
hours.
Yeah, and if they do, there goes another revenue source.
But they do take hours now. They do use
They
hours
use
at
that
this
facility,
point.
they
Yeah.
pay us to use that facility. So if they do, in fact, get funding and build their own, there's a revenue source that's gone again.
but when
we
we,
It's
give
not
them
just
how much it
Plymouth
costs
itself, which
But-
is all those
yeah.
communities that part of Plymouth County will, so in essence, everybody north of the bridge
Right.
and east of 495 will be going there.
and the problem you're going to face then is if we do lose this academy, then it's all going to turn around and we are going to have paying to them to send our firefighters to train.
Yeah.
And when you take a look that if we lose this academy, and we have that academy or the Mass Fire Academy, I know as a fire chief, well, one of the things that's getting out of budgets is training money. So how can you afford to send somebody to a facility at Stowe where if it's a 2 or 3 day program, you have to afford the accommodations, meal monies, and the likes. Whereas opposed to if it's on the county, you can send them to a similar type of program. And one other important aspect is a lot of the fire academy programs that I think John may not really have an understanding, they're an impact program, which means Mass Fire Academy instructors actually go to either the fire academy or to local fire stations on the Cape and teach a certain program. So it's not as if the students are leaving and going off Cape. They're actually bringing the training to them. But that has even reduced they don't do impact programs on the Cape now.
We have taken that over. We do, a lot of the training we do now is not necessarily on site, it's at the local fire stations.
And I think if you talk to people that teach at the Mass Fire Academy, they will also tell you that their programs have been cut back because of funding.
Well, there was, over the last several years, there have been conversations about expanding the fire academy here to include other public safety entities. You might remember that there was some conversation about having a police academy, which would be I guess that might be said to be in competition with the county. I haven't heard anything about that in the last several months. They're done.
It's a funding issue they have.
Okay, if that's done,
And I
then
think
maybe
the
the
battle of the state
motivation
police
for
that they want
funding
academy and they
to
don't
come up
want
with
it
a fire
anywhere else.
academy should be faced with that, because how could they get funding for that academy if you couldn't get funding for this other thing?
It's going to be tough. The point I wanted to bring out is they are looking at it because they see how well and how important it is to the fire department on the Cape. Cape and Islands EMS uses the fire academy right now for their training. It's a multifaceted facility, and for those of you who have been there, I think you'll understand. And we just hope people find some time to come on that day.
I think we will.
And I think that this program that you've outlined is really good because it raised your visibility, but it also raises the value of Fire Academy to the residents in the community as well. And I think that's a really important thing to do when you think about, you don't want to lose it, we don't want to lose it, but this is a way to show that there is value to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the general public needs to know.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
the press involvement and press releases and just the press being there to see that and get it into the papers. Just one more way for the general population to know what goes on, or at least have an understanding a little bit. Because there really is a fire academy that does do something.
So maybe
On-
you should be the Cape Cod Regional Fire Academy or something.
Well, we are.
I know, you ought to
Well,
go
I
I
know
just
by
call
name.
that. Yeah, that would be a
I
good
guess
thing to do.
technically it is, because we're
It is.
Cape Cod Regional known as Barnstable
Yes,
County.
that's right.
Right, so it would be a good thing to
Yeah.
call.
Honestly, over the years, the academy has been run so well that it's below the radar.
Right.
There have been
Yeah.
no problems. There have been conflicts. There haven't been issues other than just positive training. And it's time now. It's time now that people realize what we have and what we do.
That sounds great.
So-
All right, well, I will make every attempt to
Thank
get there.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
for
that
your
time.
invitation.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Glenn?
I'm the Transportation Engineer for the Cape Cod Commission, and I just want to thank you, because recently I had the opportunity to go out-of-state travel to a rail summit in Burlington, Vermont.
Rail summit?
A rail summit, yeah.
Oh, come and tell us all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can make it quick.
Take your time.
But yeah, it was very interesting just to see the plans that are laid out there, what other states are doing, what our state is doing. I thought the most interesting thing being is that the administration is putting significant amount of money into rail throughout New England and throughout the country. And there were billions of dollars at that summit for rail coming to New England.
Not just high speed, all rail?
All rail. I thought that was very interesting. after they had announced that, a representative from Amtrak ran up with a display board showing their future expansion plans, one of which was passenger railways from Hyannis. Now, I'll state to you that the Massachusetts representatives there were quick to point out that the governor has already committed to the cities of Fall River and New Bedford before they start expanding any more rail service. We're further down the list than maybe some people want to be. But it was out there, so I thought that was very interesting.
Changes priorities now that we have so many problems with the bridges. That we would go to the top of the list.
Would part of this, could you put part of this in the relocation track? Because one of the things you proposed was the relocation of the track to provide was it not intermodal but what do you call it, multimodal, multimodal transport lane. In other words, the extension of the bike, and pedestrian walkways from where it ends in Yarmouth to the intermodal center. I wonder if because as a possibility, was that the one that had the least impact with regard to the relocation or the elimination of businesses that were on that road?
We're also working on the Yarmouth Road study coming out of Willow Street. Did I present to this group? Yeah.
No, you presented
I've been presenting to so many groups. Yeah, everybody else. So maybe I should come in front of this group.
Should,
I'll contact you.
It's a great presentation.
A short presentation on the Yarmouth Road and how it's going, but part of that is a multi-use path that we need to connect from the Hyannis Transportation Center up to Exit. The town of Yarmouth and Dennis are working to extend the rail trail. There's a lot of feedback for this, and one of our options is to put that in the right of way. And actually, I had a meeting with Mass Coastal, who says that their line is shifted to the east side. So I thought maybe it means they're not quite sure. But so it seems as though the room is there, and they were quite open to it. I did call you recently. The section in Falmouth where they have the bike path right beside the rail. And it's a short section, but it gets along quite well.
And we don't have a short section there either.
One at a time.
Yeah. Okay. They're Mass Coastal, and they're on stabilization at that intersection in North Falmouth because they're going to increase the speed of the trains that are going, from the base, the trash train as we call it, from the base and up to Bourne and over the bridge, with the idea that there can be a commuter rail that could function because they're going to improve the tracks there. So that's.
Yeah, I know they're trying to visibility to bring a viable line there.
Yeah, from 25 miles an hour, whatever, to something higher than that.
Where would they cross Willow Street? Up near Railroad Ave?
On the bike path?
Yeah. Where they are, right near the.
No, it would be south of Route 6. Railroad Ave is north of Route 6. Yeah, it would be south of Route 6. There's a plan right now from consultants showing that there's a possibility to be able to put a bridge over Willow Street because the contours of the roadway up there in that area. Yep, so it would come over to the west side, and then we connect up to that, and I'm multi-path.
Bill, did you have some?
No, it's an important part of Lincoln because it also ties into initiatives that were looked at for downtown Hyannis. The 6.5 had a lot to do with how would you get from Route 6 to Hyannis, and if this is set up and it's widened, perhaps that would be where the effort would be. All those things I think are in play right now, and I think that the public really needs to see what all these alternatives are. I'm very impressed with the presentation made with the MPO yesterday about the alternatives that are being placed before the. I think that people need to show up at some of these meetings that you're having so that they can have to what their interest is and what. I'm very concerned about, let's say, maintaining the tech businesses that that are existing, but at the same time, I think we need to look at how do we widen that road so that we have the least amount of impact, and how do we incorporate all these factors into that access study.
Okay, but that isn't why. So that will be more when you come and give us your.
It was early in September.
So there was no foliage change.
He's satisfied.
Yeah, satisfied my requirement. Good.
Yeah.
All in one day too.
Yes.
5.5 hours. Came back the same day.
Glenn, I used to do that all the time.
City though, beautiful city.
Which city was it in?
Burlington.
Do you ever get a chance?
Yeah, I've been
Bernie
there.
Sanders
Yes.
that would come into the Burlington when I used to call him.
Beautiful bike path right along the lake.
They do. It's well laid out. Really, like I say, very as you see towns on Cape Cod grow. For example,
Great
certainly
lake.
Hyannis is moving that way, but it was very walkable. You can get anywhere you want to go.
Well, that's great.
Okay?
It's very pretty.
I will
you
call,
very
I will
much.
schedule you like that. That would be a good.
Yeah, that would be great.
good thing to do.
See ya.
Good to see you.
All right. Business?
We heard from,
I have none.
No.
Just not called. Just sent an email. So I haven't heard. My phone's been quiet.
I think we could adjourn.
okay, are we gonna reschedule?
We will call then for 12:30 on October 7th, and we'll have his goals.
Okay.
Just to let you know, Ed,